Autumn afternoon here in Wesel, Germany, and we are testing out those here, the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max against the Huawei Pura 80 Ultra. Triple lens setup on both, but the Huawei has a trick up its sleeve. It has the variable zoom that can switch between two zoom levels, which is quite interesting. And it has a large sensor there, the same sensor size as the Xiaomi is using for its main camera sensor. So we have an advantage there for the telezoom for sure. Also the ultra wide angle has a way wider field of view on the Huawei, and the main camera sensor on the Huawei is 1 inch, where we have 101.28 inch size sensor on the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max. Then when it comes to the front-facing shooters, the Xiaomi has higher megapixels and autofocus, so might be very interesting to see which one is winning here. I think the Xiaomi has a bit of a narrow field of view, where the Huawei has the wider field of view for sure, but we will check both of them out here in the front-facing video comparison. 4K video recording now on the front-facing camera, both of them Xiaomi 17 Pro Max and the Huawei Pura 80 Ultra. Both feature autofocus, and I see already that the Huawei has one feature more because it can go wider, and now pretty much on par with the widest view and the only default view on the Xiaomi, I think. That's a bit more crop down, and 2x is possible as well with a press of a button. So let's keep them on the same width. And what do you think about those here? We have autofocus, so I can show you the camera lenses of the Huawei and the other way around as well. There we go, both feature autofocus, very nice indeed. What about HDR? Which one is doing better there? There's not much sun going on there, so in the background you will probably see the same. What about colors there? Which one is performing a bit better in terms of the greenery here that we see for sure? What do you think about both of them here? One ace that the Xiaomi has up its sleeve is that it can switch to the back-facing cameras without any big audio loss, which is quite cool. We cannot do this on the Huawei, so I won't do this here on both, otherwise it would be a bit unfair. Let's check out the main camera sensors now. Main camera sensors now on both. 1 inch type sensor on the Huawei should give me nicer bokeh for sure. The 101.28 inch size sensor shouldn't be any issues on the Xiaomi as well. What do you think about both of them? I think both of them are good. What do you think? And 4K 30, 4K 60 frames per second, even 4K 120 on the Xiaomi, and 8K on the main, 8K 30 on the main camera sensor. Let's switch to the ultra wide angle first on the Xiaomi by pressing one button, and you notice the switch. And yeah, my hand is in the way a little bit. There we go, to the ultra wide angle as well on the Huawei. Definitely the Huawei way wider than the Xiaomi. 4K 30 frames per second. What do you think about both of them here in terms of vloggability? I like the Huawei a little bit more because premier bokeh with the main camera sensor, and the ultra wide angle has a bit of more ultra wide field of view, where it's a bit cramped and narrow and smallish and so down that I have to probably move my hand out of the way there. What do you think about both of them here? And let's perform a little zoom test as well. So native zoom test now, ultra wide angle on both. Let's switch directly to 2x to see which one. I think they both have a bit of switching, but the Xiaomi even a little bit more, I think. Xiaomi has 5x here, we have 3.7x on the Huawei. What do you think about both of them? And now let's go to 10x on both. And which one is smoother? I think both are actually very smooth because I didn't have to switch lenses. But let's go back to the ultra wide angle. And let's go back to 10x. So which one is a bit better in terms of like the switching there, and which one has more details there? What do you think about both of them? Let's go back to 1x maybe. So which one is better? What do you think? Daylight shots side by side, we can see the ultra wide angle is way too dark on the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max. I'm not sure what's going on there. It had some issues, but I have to say I was using it with HyperOS 3.020, and after I did this test here I got HyperOS 3.024. I didn't want to redo the test. This is why I'm sticking to it here right now, but maybe they fixed it. So as soon as it sees the sky, it was exposing for the sky and makes everything a little bit darker. But when we zoom in, what we can see here, first of all, way more dramatic on the Pura 80 Ultra. It's doing a little bit editing there. It's making it a bit bluer, where it's more leaning towards what the Xiaomi is showing here, with more grayish kind of sky that we had towards the warm end instead of the bluer end. But both are doing a fine job in taking this shot here. But detail-wise, I'm a bit shocked that the Huawei is basically identical, even though it has the wider field of view. That shows that, yes, it's a bit more sharpening, it's a bit more detail for sure, but it's 17 versus 13 millimeters. It should destroy the 17 millimeter shot in terms of detail level and in the center, the Huawei, but it's not. It's very, very close towards the side. Both are get very soft there. The center here is just almost identical. That's just because of the dark exposure. You see a little bit less there on the Xiaomi, but this is a win for the Huawei. Wider field of view, detail levels almost on par. Definitely a win for the Xiaomi. For the Huawei, the Xiaomi is just too dark. And then we have a zoom shot, 10x zoom, hard for, not 10x, 5x zoom, native zoom for the Xiaomi, harder for the Pura 80 Ultra. It has a larger sensor, but it's cropping in a little bit to achieve this zoom shot here. And we have 24 megapixels because the high-res mode on the Pura 80 Ultra is turned on. So this is why we have a bit closer kind of shot, and it's a bit closer because it's 121 millimeter instead of 150 millimeter. The color is nicer on the Huawei, again a bit too dark, too underexposed on the Xiaomi. You can see there's a bit of more editing going on the Huawei than on the Xiaomi, and yes, this is a bit of a hard sign, and the Xiaomi is doing a better job because yes, the sign in real life looks like this. It looks almost like that AI failed to reconstruct the text a bit. This is why I like to use it, but you can see it on other parts as well, like this, for example, where it looks more edited on the Huawei than on the Xiaomi. Besides too darker kind of exposure, I like the less editing, but the optical zoom can keep up at 5x against the Huawei, or we could say the Huawei can keep up with the optical zoom of the Xiaomi. You can see it's a bit sharper there, it's a bit softer there, very, very close both there. Then the selfies, front-facing camera a bit wider on the Huawei, a bit closer on the Xiaomi. Both feature autofocus, but I think the Huawei is nailing this shot, where the Xiaomi is a bit soft. It's a bit too soft there, in my opinion. We have nice focus fall-off, which is natural in both because they have autofocus. It's a bit more softer here because everything is a bit softer on the frame than here. It's a bit grainy already here, where here it looks like a bit sharpening things up there in the background, which it should only do for the foreground. Color-wise, a bit more, you look at this green grass here, compared with the green grass here, it's the same kind of grass, but it's more punchy here for some reason, where here it's a bit grainy, but the same color there. So yeah, a bit weird what the Huawei is doing there in editing, but I would take, if I have to crop in or something like this, I would take the Huawei. Also a bit more bluish, the sky there on the Xiaomi actually. Then main camera shot, a bit underexposed on the Xiaomi. Again, the same issue that I had with the previous firmware. As soon as it sees the skies a little bit brighter there, it's like underexposing dramatically. But so you can see it especially here, the staircase is almost invisible on the Xiaomi. And also towards the sides, you can see it's a bit more readable. It is again 24 megapixels. This is why on the Huawei, and this really helps with readability. But also I think towards the sides, it's a better optic, and it's not, it's sharpening up a little bit more. This is also something that you clearly can see. In terms of colors, a bit too blue maybe on the Huawei, but way too warm on the Xiaomi in this case, where everything, this is like not that red, and this is like a little bit too coldish kind that we have here on the Huawei. But the Huawei at least stays consistent, where the Xiaomi, nah, You will see next shot here. The 10x both have to zoom in, crop in, but we have some kind of optical hybrid crop on the Pura 80 Ultra, where it's like purely software crop on the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, and we can see the difference in terms of high dynamic range. So the larger sensor is working its job there, but the rest, very interesting, very close. It's a little bit, if you really look at Pixel Peep, more details. The text is a bit more readable than here. And here, almost identical issues there with reconstructing the text and the logos. So not much of a difference between those two. They both have to heavily edit, sharpen up things and so on. It's just HDR is better, and some details you can see are a little bit better there on the Huawei in comparison to the Xiaomi, but it's very, very close between those two. This is the shot that impressed me the most, color-wise pleasant for the Xiaomi 17 Pro here in the background, but the foreground is way too yellow, and it's a bit colder maybe on the Pura 80 Ultra, but it's more coming towards what I saw with my own eyes, a bit sharpened up again, a bit more contrasty maybe here in the foreground. And then the background is where the Xiaomi surprised me by not applying so much sharpening. Like I said, the 15 Pro would go overboard here, even more than the Pura 80 Ultra is doing. But the 17 Pro Max on the Xiaomi is tuning it way down, where it looks more pleasant for me on my eyes, in comparison to the Pura 80 Ultra. That's just a bit over sharpened there. You can see it here in the fence where the fine lines are just a bit over sharpened, and you have some artifacts there that's not, it's not going straight there, and here it's also looking weird, where it's also sharpening things up, but a bit more pleasant and nicer on the Xiaomi. And towards the sides here, yeah, both doing a fine job. Also with this HDR kind of test shot, I think both handle this HDR very nice. A bit more contrasty on the 17 Pro Max, and that's it. And then telezoom shots again, 10x between those two. Yeah, we know already that the Huawei has some issues with the skate and a way too reddish kind of color that we usually get. But now the Xiaomi is overboard with this red that it added here. I'm not sure what's going on there, why it's doing this. Here we can see the difference at 10x with the sensor size, and it's not a dramatic huge difference. Keep in mind it's a 2x crop basically that we have here on the Xiaomi. And yeah, it is a hybrid optical kind of zoom that we have there on the Pura. The Pura from Huawei is having larger sensor, more information. You can clearly see it here. It's just winning against the Xiaomi for sure. It's not 24 megapixels here. It is 12 megapixels, 14 like it says here. To be completely accurate, but it is because it's too dark, so it's like not doing this high-res shots when it's too dark. And yeah, but you can see dramatically the differences here, more natural looking, a bit more details there, and struggling with HDR again. This line heavily over sharpened, it's not so over sharpened, has more detail levels. Also this little line there. Yeah, the Huawei is winning. It's not by a huge margin, but it is winning. With the periscope telezoom on both here at a far away object. Close-up shots now. Xiaomi 17 Pro Max I don't like so much for the close-up shots or for the macro photography, because it's just, first of all, the macro mode is just a bit too limited, and second of all, it is not sharpening up so much that in general I like for normal shots, but for macro it needs a bit maybe of sharpening. It's just way too soft, and I think maybe the focus confirmation did something wrong because it's not really in focus there. And the Huawei is also not 100% in focus, but it is a bit sharper all over the frame there. And I like it a little bit more. So for macro photography, the Xiaomi is losing against the Huawei, I would say. But what do you think? Write it down in the comment section. Here we have some more telezoom shots, because I thought I have to try that out, because at the shots that I did outside, I did not notice much of a difference, but in theory and in practice there should be much more of a difference, because the sensor is so much smaller on the 17 Pro Max, or let's say like this, the sensor is so much larger on the Pura 80 Ultra, and I expected it to have better details. And when we go in here, indoors for example, it becomes apparent, there's much more detail. Yes, there's a bit of sharpening also applied, but there's more detail there. It is clearer. On the 17 Pro Max, it's a bit more fuzzier. than the very clear kind of Pura 80 Ultra. It is over sharpened sometimes, yeah, for sure. Some people might like it a little bit less sharp, but it is what it is. It is a little bit better there on the Pura 80 Ultra. Look at this, these kinds of shots. It's a bit over sharpened for sure, but here you can see, you can read everything, which is a little bit harder on the 17 Pro Max, as the text is hard to read there, especially in such situations there. So you be the judge, which one you like better. And I think this one I didn't. There we go. There we have another shot there. It is surprisingly close, but still, because of the further range we have and because of better algorithms and better sensor, the super zoomed in shots are way better on the Pura 80 Ultra, like this, for example, where it shows it's not only AI that has to work like on the 17 Pro Max, but it's also what it has in terms of power, and they can read things more clear on the Pura 80 Ultra than on the 17 Pro Max. So it is a clear win for the telezoom lens on the Pura 80 Ultra. Becomes evident more the more you zoom in. In the lower zoom ranges, they're very, very close there. But also, I think the portrait shots show the advantage of the Pura 80 Ultra. So we will check out the portrait shots as well. Here we have the portrait shots. We start off with 48 or 46 millimeter, very close together, 2x zoom basically on both. We can see that the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max is making the light a little bit white, more white than the Pura 80 Ultra, which leaves it more natural as it was more yellow. So the light sensor that we have on the Pura 80 Ultra is working its magic there a little bit. When we crop in, you can see that they are surprisingly close in terms of sharpness and detail levels there between those two, and also the AI kicking in. My beard is a bit more sharpened up on the 17 Pro Max, where it's a bit softer here. Eyes and eyebrows are also clearly there. You can see only towards the side that there is this a little bit overexposure that we don't have here so much. I have to pixel peep and pixel neat here, but this is why the sensors, both the main camera sensors, are so well handled. So the 1-inch type sensor on the Huawei can definitely be on par with or the other way around. The less than 1-inch type sensor can output almost the same as the 1-inch type sensor. So I'm surprised about how good the 17 Pro Max is doing here. And let's go and try out their other zoom shots, which is a 5x zoom on the 17 Pro Max, and I think it's 5.6x, 135 millimeter on the Pura 80 Ultra. They have this as their buttons. The Pura 80 Ultra has the advantage in the portrait shots that you have the ability to flexibly zoom in and out the way you like it. But we will check it out later. Now let's check it here, 5x versus 5x. Very, very close together. Both, I think, apply almost the same amount of sharpening. There's just the skin color a bit more realistic on the Pura. It's a bit too yellowish here now on the 17 Pro Max. Haircuts and cutouts, fantastic. I would even say, okay, this is a slightly different angle there. Let's go up here just to see the difference. A bit sharper, it's a bit softer towards here. So the cutouts and everything is nicely done there as well. I think both very, very good. It's just like color-wise, I think the Pura is a little bit better. Then we have the advantage of the Pura 80 Ultra that it can even do 10x portrait shots in portrait mode. Very cool. And everything in between. So I could even do 115, if I would like dial it in, 115 millimeter shot here that would... It is working, and you don't have this ability on the 17 Pro Max. You can only choose like this one time 2x and I think 35 millimeter 1.5x is also possible, and then we have the 5x, but there's nothing way in between where you can zoom in, which is a bit of a bummer. But this is 10x. 10x is a bit over sharp and a bit artificial looking here on the Pura 80 Ultra. This is like the last thing where I would say, okay, it's still okay. I can still, in a pinch, use this. Now let's compare 75 versus 89, which is their If you press the 2x button on the 17 Pro Max, it goes to 75, and if you just press the 3.7x or something, what we have there on the Pura 80 Ultra, this is what you get there. Both set to f4.5 as the virtual aperture, both doing a fine job. I think that the colors are a little bit too warm on the Xiaomi, but you can see already the difference between those two. In this focal length, that makes most of sense, which is like around 70 to 80 millimeter. I now have 90 millimeter here almost on the Pura 80 Ultra. I think the Pura 80 Ultra is nailing it, which is more like a portrait kind of shot range. Yes, 115 millimeter and 135 millimeter is identical in terms of sharpness and detail level, both good. But the in-betweens there is, I think, where the 17 Pro Max is falling on its head. And I'm not sure why so much, because I think it was performing way better in the normal 75 millimeter shot mode while using the 5x as a crop, but maybe it's not doing this in the portrait mode, it's just cropping in from the main. This I could imagine, otherwise I'm not sure why so much detail loss there. But yeah, the Pura 80 Ultra is doing much better there on this side. So yeah, portrait very close together, but the Pura 80 Ultra has more flexibility throughout all the zoom ranges, where we have only fixed zoom ranges on the 17 Pro Max, and the 17 Pro Max is slightly losing here against the Pura 80 Ultra. Nighttime video now on the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max. I'm doing this indoors because outside it's storming and raining like crazy, so you have to live with indoors low light situation. In the winter times, you are also using your phone indoors and you want to maybe film something indoors. Of course, you have lights that might help you. So I have a bit of light here in the background now that might help to illuminate my face. But I think the sensor that Xiaomi is using here on the 17 Pro Max, even in this completely dark situation, might even have like a bit of, an advantage there in comparison to the older sensors with the same, roughly same sensor size. Walking towards the light. Now the light's in the background. What do you think about this one? How well is it doing here? And now I'm turning around here. And now the light there in the foreground. There's a bit of red light there, or green light, changing light in the background, if you see it. So what do you think about this one here? How well is it doing in comparison to the Pura 80 Ultra? What I totally forgot to mention, the Xiaomi was recording at 4K 24 frames per second, so night video mode, that we don't have here on the Huawei Pura 80 Ultra. But we have a 1-inch type sensor, and this 1-inch type sensor helps already with gathering more light if the pixels are a bit larger there on it. And we have also the RYYB technology combined with a variable aperture that can open pretty wide here, f1.6 I think it is. And this will definitely bring us a very bright picture in comparison to the Xiaomi, hopefully. There's a bit of light. What do you think about this? How well is it doing here in comparison? Internal mics, by the way, I'm indoors, so it's not a very hard kind of situation, but I think Huawei is still a bit better with the internal mics, especially when it comes to also isolating your voice from other noises. Xiaomi is doing very good. I think it even a little bit better than the Xiaomi 15 Pro, the predecessor of the 17 Pro Max. Walking towards the light, standing under the light, now the light in the background. How well is the coating here? Might be Xiaomi might have an edge because the experience on the Huawei is a bit like shady, not so good. Now a little bit of like changing lights there in the background. How well is it doing this? Light in foreground, lights here. So how well is this in comparison to the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max? What do you think? Which one has an edge over the night videos? Like mentioned in my video, it was just too rainy and stormy to go out. Nevertheless, I tried those out. We start off with the ultra wide angle. You again see that the ultra wide angle has more information to capture on the Pura 80 Ultra, not only a wider field of view, but it's also just a bit brighter. The night mode is kicking in. It's heavily edited for sure, but it's with 17 millimeters. You can see a dramatic difference. Yes, it's sharpening up. It is like doing lots of AI on the Huawei, and it's very soft on the Xiaomi, but you can see a little bit more details this way, where on the Xiaomi it's just not pleasant to look at. Even like here you can read, where here it's like almost impossible to read stuff. and overblown highlight, where here it's also a bit overblown, but you can see a little bit more there. And here it's like completely dark, where you can see, hey, there's a window somewhere supposed to be. So yeah, this is a win for the Huawei. And when it comes to main camera sensor, the Huawei has RYYB. This makes everything a little bit more greenish and yellowish here in this case. Actually yellowish because it's double yellow sensor. You see a little bit more of information than on the Xiaomi, but it's not a huge difference between those two. You can read cappuccino, and there's, I think, a Chinese tea. I can also do it here, but it's a bit more noisy there and a bit too dark, so you don't see what this here actually is probably. It's a bit noisy here, more heavily edited there. But they're astonishingly close. Both have this overexposure here of this green light of my router. And yeah, both astonishingly good, I would say. I would like give them equal points there with a slight edge towards what Huawei is like brightening things up a little bit, but it's not dramatically better looking. Especially here, I was surprised how good the main camera sensor is doing of the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, that I could really say it is competing against the Pura 80 Ultra. Pura is more accurate with colors, because this is the gray color of this elephant toy, where the Xiaomi is making it a bit too warm, but it looks aesthetically pleasing to my eyes. When we zoom in, however, you can see the difference between the 1-inch and the 101.28 inch size sensor. Detail levels. Here you can see a bit of this fur or this plushy toy hair, where here, because it's just, first of all, too warm, it's a bit less. But still, I'm surprised how good the Xiaomi is keeping up with a smaller sensor here with the Huawei. Yeah, the Huawei has the more accurate colors, that's for sure, but the rest is like, it was pitch dark though, pitch black. I could see the nose and the eyes, maybe the white spots I could see of this elephant there. But yeah, I can give them equal points there, because both are doing a fine job there with the main camera sensor. Now we test the zoom lens, and this is something that on first glance surprised me, because the exposure is a bit better on the Xiaomi at the native zoom range here. Now it's not even the native zoom range, it is the 7x that we have, 89 versus 87 millimeters. And yes, why is this better here? Because it is using a crop from the main camera sensor, and this has a little bit better handling the exposure there on the 17 Pro Max, where here it's using already the Tele one. So we have complete overexposure there, where here the detail are completely missing, which is like on first glance it looks better, but yeah, you see it's not really better. And you can see already the ISO that it's using here, both very high ISO, but it's like, what is it here, 20,000, and here it's like 25,600. It's like, it was dark. Let's say it like this. Let's go to the 5x zoom range, which now is a native one for the Xiaomi, and the Xiaomi really was shooting with the 5x. You can see here ISO 3200, where here it's 12,800. So it is a bit higher on the Huawei for that matter, but the Huawei also gets in a little bit more details here of the couch. This is still overexposed. Here, sadly, also overexposed. I don't see much of a difference between this here, a bit more bluish. And detail levels here, we can see it's a bit more warmer again, it's a bit more bluish here. It's a bit more details on the Huawei that you can see. It's a bit noisier here, that leaves these little things a little bit more visible, but it's also like inventing stuff that wasn't really there on this packaging. I have this packaging here with me somewhere, so I can check it. Yeah, it is definitely inventing stuff that really wasn't 100% there, which is something that yeah, you have to keep in mind here. So yes, the Huawei is winning. And the more you zoom in, the more it becomes evident here, 10x. Very close still, I would say. But look at this here, noise levels, detail levels. You can read the names of the video files there. And the path, maybe the download you can read on both eventually. But here, 71% battery. Yeah, you can maybe eventually see that. Anchor number 1. Can read it here as well, but it is a bit more smoothed out, has a bit more details there on the Huawei. That's interesting. Look at here, it's missing the rings. And here it has the rings. So yes, maybe the AI on the 5x zoom is a bit better, the optical one on the Xiaomi for sure, than the crop in from the Pura. The 10x, the sensor size advancements of the Pura become evident. Look at this here, the couch. It's just like a mess only. So yeah, it is definitely better there. And then selfie. Selfie both with illuminating the display. Yeah, which one do you like, prefer better? Let's take a look at the detail levels. I think they're doing a fine job there. It's a bit more over sharpening, a bit more reinventing the wheel there. It's a bit more natural sharpness, I think, as well on the Huawei. Huawei doing a good job. It's a bit greenish kind of looking here, where this is a bit warmish kind of looking. Yeah, almost identical between those two. You be the judge. But not much of a difference between those two in terms of selfies in the night. Ranking and conclusion. TLDR, the Huawei Pura 80 Ultra gets 4.723 points, when the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max gets 4.545 points. Yes, I raised the points for the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max. Let's go into more details. Main camera photo quality is surprisingly similar. Even though we have a smaller sensor on the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, it can keep up at daylight, but also at nighttime with the Pura 80 Ultra. This is thanks to a very nice new sensor that Xiaomi is using, low-fic sensor as well, but also the processing that Xiaomi is applying. So if you check RAW versus RAW, of course the 1-inch type sensor will win in the amount of noise that you will get. Way more noise on the Xiaomi for sure. But as Xiaomi has so much resolution, so much detail there, as the 1-inch type sensor, and you can get relatively easy rid of this noise, we have to say it's pretty much equal themselves out. It's like you have to go into 0.000 territory to find difference between them, and then the Pura 80 Ultra has some side cases where it will win. But for 99% of people who just take a shot, they won't notice a difference, not a huge difference between the Pura 80 Ultra and the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max. Usually it is like the Pura 80 Ultra has sometimes better colors. The 17 Pro Max has always a tendency to have a little bit warmer colors. That's in contrast to the previous versions. It always had like always a bit of a cooler tone to it. Where we can immediately agree is definitely the ultra wide angle. It's the weakest point on the 17 Pro Max. It is getting 4 points here because it is keeping up, at least in terms of resolution and detail level, with the Pura 80 Ultra, even though the Pura 80 Ultra is a much wider lens there, which is like, yeah, interesting, and a much bigger sensor as well. So at nighttime, the 17 Pro Max ultra wide angle, forget about it. The Pura 80 Ultra can still deliver something that is somehow usable as long as you don't zoom in. Talking about zooming, zoom and portrait photo quality, this is where I raised the points of the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, because most of the time, especially in this like dim lit daylight autumn situation, it was keeping up with the Pura 80 Ultra, and you really have to pixel peep to see the differences. Like for example HDR, the Pura 80 Ultra, much larger sensor, is performing better at 10x. The interesting part comes when you go to 3x or roughly 3x, where we don't have a 3x sensor on the 17 Pro Max, apart from portrait photography where it fails completely. In the normal photo mode, the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max can somehow keep up with the Pura 80 Ultra. Not completely, of course, there is a difference. This is why we have the Pura 80 Ultra much higher scored there. But the 17 Pro Max is not so far apart, I would say it's a complete disaster. Or the Pura 80 Ultra is completely demolishing the 17 Pro Max. It comes with longer zoom ranges, but then it's more an AI dual, and of course detail dual, where the Pura 80 Ultra has good AI and has larger sensor, good details, where it can definitely beat the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, especially with portraits. More flexibility on the Pura 80 Ultra, especially in the range that is like not 5x, so 5x below. 2x is almost identical thanks to the very good main camera sensor, but like when it comes to 3x or like 70 to 80 or 90 millimeters, then I think the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max is struggling with the portraits. And even above 5x, 150mm. Xiaomi 17 Pro Max doesn't have anything to offer, where the Pura 80 Ultra has stepless portrait mode. You can get 4.3 or 5.2 times zoom and it still will work, which is something that you cannot get on the 17 Pro Max. So this is a win for the Pura 80 Ultra in the telezoom on portrait photo quality. Video recording quality is also a win for the Pura 80 Ultra. It is a little bit more stable. The switching between lenses even, I think it was quite similar when you switch from the ultra wide angle to the zoom, telezoom. But you could see sometimes that the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max stutters for a second or is less sharp, or also the switching to the ultra wide angle has a huge color shift sometimes, or a huge white, like it's flashing white or flashing dark before it gets to the shot. Something that they can definitely improve. Hopefully they will improve. It is solid on the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, but the Pura 80 Ultra is just better. It's on a league on its own almost. It's very, very good and stable with the footage there. Colors are also very good, where the 17 Pro Max was pretty good with colors at daylight, a bit warm for sure, but it's getting, for the video recording, a little bit too punchy in my opinion, and the Pura 80 Ultra has a much better balance there. Front-facing camera is also pretty solid on both, but the Pura 80 Ultra is better there, 4.7 times. First of all, 4.7 points. First of all, it is wider, the field of view. You have more zooming in and out options that is completely missing on the 17 Pro Max. And I think it is handling most of the shots, especially also at daylight, with a little bit of more details there. Yes, it is sharpening up. Yes, it's using heavily AI, where the 17 Pro Max is not doing this, but the 17 Pro Max can sometimes lead up to a completely soft image with the front-facing camera, which I don't really like. So yeah, it is good, solid, the front-facing camera, but it is a league above, a league down towards the Huawei Pura 80 Ultra. And when it comes to camera UI, however, I like the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max camera UI a little bit better. Everything with one-handed usage. You can swipe up to go to your settings, you can swipe down to have some extra toggles, swipe up to go to different more options, which is quite nice. So they have a very cool user interface there. They're missing some options there, they're taking some options away. I know that this is why in terms of extra features we get 4.4 points, but they have a nice camera UI and even a bit nicer than the Pura 80 Ultra by default. For example, my example of choice almost always for Huawei, setting a timer. It's a damn complicated thing on the Huawei Pura 80 Ultra. You have to go into a separate menu in settings, and at least on Harmonious Next, it is kept to portrait mode. So if you have your phone in landscape mode, you have to like turn your head or turn the phone again into the portrait mode and then find the timer, and then the timer is applied. The timer is applied for everything, and if you forget to set it back, because it's not just a switch that you can turn off after you take the shot, the next time you take the photo, want to take a photo, there's a timer running and you cannot even stop it. On the older versions, you can just, and the timer is running, press again for it to take the shot. But here you cannot anymore on the Pura 80 Ultra, which is a bit of a bummer. Anyway, much easier on the 17 Pro Max. You have the possibility in portrait mode, swipe down, there's a timer option, you click on it, have 5 seconds and it's good to go. And if you leave the phone like even a day after and you want to take a normal shot, the timer is set to off because you're going into normal photo mode. So it's a bit of a cleverer camera UI in my opinion. Extra features are a bit of better on the Huawei Pura 80 Ultra. We have, like, for example, those color settings. I'm talking about the Chinese version, of course. The color settings that we have here, which is quite cool. We have log recording on all lenses, which is nice. Xiaomi also has this. Xiaomi has some very nice photo features there as well, like saving some profiles for photos and so on. But there's some missing bits and pieces there as well, where I deem the Huawei Pura 80 Ultra a slightly bit ahead of the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max. So where does it end up in our ranking system then? It is climbing up a little bit, the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, and it's climbing from the 10th place now to the 8th place. So it is skipping the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. It is better, yes, the 17 Pro Max. I'm saying it here out loud right now. The Xiaomi 17 Pro Max is better than the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. You can crucify me in the comment section and write a very good comment why I'm wrong if you want to, but you can see it is 0.05 points. So it's literally almost nothing. They're almost identical. And this is quite interesting that it took Xiaomi like 2 series or 2 generations for achieving with a Pro version something that they did with the Ultra version before. And this by using less hardware. Interesting, isn't it? So main camera photo quality. Yes, the Xiaomi 14 Ultra 1-inch type sensor, lit 900, but I think it's an older version. All the processing is cooked or anything, something like this. The Xiaomi 14 Ultra constantly in resolution, in detail levels, is losing against the 17 Pro Max. Even in raw photos. I was comparing this in preparation for my next comparison between those two. Yeah, so we can be excited about this as well. But I'm like maybe getting the conclusion out before. It is like, yeah, the main camera photo quality on the 17 Pro Max for average user most of the time is better than what you get on the 14. What does it mean, average user? Most of the time, if you snap a photo in JPEG, you mostly get a nicer shot on the 17 Pro Max. It's nicer exposed and especially in darker conditions. Sometimes overexposed. This is like still an issue, but has a nicer resolution. Where the 14 Ultra is definitely winning against the 17 Pro Max is the ultra wide angle. There's no way around it. It's like super wide on the 14 Ultra, and the resolution and detail level is good. Zoom portrait photo quality is better on the 17 Pro Max against the 14 Ultra. Again, I will talk to you more about it, how this is possible. It's not coming to portrait mode because portrait mode 14 Ultra is slightly advantage, has an advantage there because of the 3.2x. But for normal everyday shots at 3x, the 17 Pro Max is on par with the 14 Ultra's dedicated sensor for this, which is like almost unheard of. But at 5x, it has an advantage where it has more resolution and a little bit of better quality and a better bit of processing there on the 17 Pro Max. Video recording quality is on par. This is quite interesting. The 17 Pro Max has very nice features there, but also the front-facing camera is so much better than on the 14 Ultra that it has to be on par there, even though we have a bit of an advantage on the 14 Ultra when it comes to zoom range, but it's not a huge one. Autofocus performance is the same. Front-facing camera is better on the 17 Pro Max. Like I said, camera UI and camera extra features are nearly identical now. There's just 14 Ultra still with HyperOS 2. Vivo X200 Pro is now above the 17 Pro Max. It has a slightly weaker main camera photo quality. They have the same sensor size, but the newer sensor on the 17 Pro Max is winning against the X200 Pro. And yes, I will do a dedicated comparison between them as well, because the X200 Pro got several updates after my last test. So probably, hopefully, it will maybe equal themselves out, maybe getting even higher points there. It has a slightly bit better ultra-wide angle, the Vivo X200 Pro. Wider field of view, I expected in terms of detail levels to be almost the same, maybe the X200 a little bit more ahead. Zoom portrait quality is like X200 Pro is probably winning against the 17 Pro Max. The only thing that I could imagine is that if you have the X200 Pro in its normal default settings with the AI enhancement enabled, you might prefer the 17 Pro Max because it doesn't have so much sharpening, so much AI kicking in almost all the time if you stay in the 5x range. If you go to 10x, then it's like almost equaling themselves out. But I have to check this, but I'm pretty sure the X200 Pro with 4.9 has a better telezoom. Video recording quality, however, X200 Pro is totally failing with the selfie cam. It's almost unusable because of the lack of stabilization. If you don't walk around, then yeah, it's okay. But nighttime is like the shutter speed too low, and as long as you move, the movement is the biggest enemy of the X200 Pro selfie cam. Let's say it like this. And this is something that the Xiaomi 17 Pro doesn't struggle with. The X200 Pro also has some issue with audio recording, like mics, external mics that you put in for video recording is like way too low. You have to always raise it in post, which is a little bit of cumbersome, but this is like something that I don't put in here, I'm just mentioning it. The front-facing camera is better on the 17 Pro Max. We have autofocus on the front-facing camera, and I think the quality is also a dark night better, but we will check it out for sure. I would want to say any extra features definitely better on the Vivo. We know it has much more extra features there. So yeah, I think the 17 Pro Max from Xiaomi is doing a splendid job. It is still a little bit behind the 15 Ultra here, as you see, so it's not on the same level there, especially when it comes to the zoom and portrait photo quality and the ultra wide angle. But everything else, as for a Pro model, I think it's competing against the X200 Pro, very close together. as one of the Pro models there. Yes, definitely the X300 Pro. At one point I will test it, and I expect it to be in the territory of the 15 Ultra and the Find X7 Ultra, maybe even beating the X100 Ultra for that matter. But I have to check the new sensor, because I'm not sure if the new sensor can the main camera photo quality can beat the X100 Ultra, and especially the ultra wide angle. There I'm already a bit skeptical. Zoom portrait follow, I'm not expecting it to fall behind 4.9 points. It should be even better, maybe reaching the Huawei Pura level, maybe a bit lower there than Huawei Pura level. 4.95, 4.96 is what I expect it to be. Anyway, if you have some comments, write it down in the comment section. That's everything for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Until the next time. Bye.